Ah, yeah. Radical Jack here. Day 13. Lucky 13, I say. Yeah, what makes something unlucky and lucky, eh? I think it's extremely lucky to find a four-leaf clover in this sense, because they are rare. I remember a lady, Wanda, God rest her soul. She found a four-leaf clover in her garden, and she was regular at finding them. And I remember I put it down for a minute after she'd given it to me, and said, "There you go." And immediately I lost, and it was like the wind must have blown it away or something, because I just left it on top of a tuner. And yeah, it was like trying to find a four-leaf clover. I couldn't find it for the life of me. Already picked. She said, "Don't worry." She went back and she found another one. So you could say that's lucky, right? But I won 10 grand on a scratch card. In fact, I was one of the first four. I always say I was the first in Britain to have won the 10,000, because it was only one scratch card them days, and they weren't long out. And I was in a unit at that time for what was known as habitual criminals. I had, in a way, managed to blag my way out of a sentence and into this place where I had to go there for 3 months. And it was it was pretty obvious, right? I was in and out like a jackhammer, that there was something else going on. So I fit the profile, but you know, I see my prison days and the days in a cell as a good thing. It saved my life. In fact, I didn't have to deal with the outside world, which wasn't a particularly nice place at the time. And I felt safe in prison. I felt well rested. I learned to meditate without even understanding what meditation was. I read some books. I guess I developed my own style of English because I got thrown out in first year. So I don't have secondary education. So you might notice that from my vocabulary sometimes. But I'm a unique writer. I have my own style of poetry. So maybe it was all a good thing. But prison was good for me like that, because I got some sleep, and even though the food's not great, routine works. The body likes clockwork, so it did me a big favor, and I kind of enjoyed going there. Um, Weirdly enough. So, but anyway, at this particular juncture, I managed to get into this with I was looking at a sentence, and so I managed to avoid it by getting profiled for this place in Borough, in London. And we had to go there for 3 months, and it was around that time, about 6 weeks into that, the day after my 21st birthday, I won 10,000 on a scratch card. Now I was potentially the first person. Four people won around the same time, and I think one other might have collected theirs before me, or two. And I was in the Sun newspaper as this, one of the winners. So you might have heard me say this before, whoever you are, but yeah, it's true. I was one of the first people. I always say I was the first. Um, but 10,000. You could say that was lucky, or you could say whatever you like. Now I'm convinced myself that there's more to this world than meets the eye. I've done things with my body, in moments in time that would put the Matrix to shame. Really bending time. I've got some stories to tell you around stuff like that. Things that are impossible. So it's quite interesting. How and why these things happen to us. Winning that 10,000 for me was interesting in the sense that it was a turning point for me. I'd been making a life out of crime. Nothing serious. I was never a bad person. I've been called a scumbag by all means. To some people that might be the definition of me or whatever, But criminals are bred, if you ask me. Why stick them in a place where they can share ideas? It's very interesting when you look at the system and the way that it works. It's there's 3.5 million, maybe 4 million now, Americans, American prisoners incarcerated. I mean, think about that. Like 3.5 million, like it's almost the size of Ireland, in population. It's definitely more than half, and it's nuts. It's absolute nuts. The majority of those characters should not be in there. There's no doubt about that. And so the establishment gets away with a lot, because there's somebody to point the finger at, and if you only knew what goes on behind the scenes, police stations have quotas. Once that quota, they got that quota. That's it. And so a lot of the time crime is not they're never there when the crime happens. And what is crime? I mean, isn't it a crime to maybe kill animals? Isn't it a crime to drop bombs on babies? I mean, collateral damage. We have all these words for these things, but in reality, it's like having criminals and the idea that there is somebody out there that would steal your goods, it sells security systems, alarm systems, and it goes on. Better locks, da 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 da. It's a business, and there's no doubt about it. You know what I mean? It's if you look at everything, we are a product of our environment, and so in that way it's very interesting, because I don't know how to fully express this, and this is no justification for what people do necessarily, But I met nothing but good people in there, young guys with chips on their shoulders, and perhaps they're the poets. Perhaps they're mostly like me. They've become revolutionaries in ideas and inventions, and I'd love to know where half those characters were when I was 17, 18, 19, when I was in prison. Where they are now. Are they teaching kids? Are they musicians? Are they famous in some way for doing something? Or infamous? I mean, the thing is, the way I look at it, it's like a child. You give them some Ritalin and stop them from showing emotion. Close them down. And then isn't it very easy then just to stick a gun in a child's hand like that and say, yeah, you're in the army now, son. Go to war. So I don't believe in these things. This ADHD and these labels. These things can be easily explained. I think at least most of them. I'm not saying there are some rare cases of wires loose in some way. But for the majority of it, like schizophrenia, I think it's it's we're all prone to some kind of slight kind of depression or bipolarness or whatever. It's just like it just depends, on maybe your mineral count. So I'm convinced there's a huge issue here. So we're still on the food subject because it seems to me like from the research I've done and the snippets that come to me that if you're ill in some way, it's a mineral deficiency, and okay, we might need to supplement that stuff, but you have to be careful when you buy supplements because they might be not what it says on the packet. So you have to look deep and hard and research correctly to find the good products. But we should be able to get them out of our food. And ultimately, this is the beautiful thing that Lara put up on one of my comments, from the Facebook post of one of my vids of the last couple of evenings. This cottage industry, is growing our own vegetables and getting back to the land and so on, and how it used to be, and so this is it. We might think you're getting good food and good this and good that and the other, but it might be void of good mineral content. So it's very interesting though, because as I said, there's scales to this. I mean, I had such a bad diet, I think, and I was so full of sugar that actually when I went to prison, even the prison food was better, and obviously the rest and the solitary confinement, if you like, because I liked single bang up. Yeah, I shared when I was a bit of a cleaner. There was four of us in a cell, and then there was two in a cell. But there was times where I got into a fight, so I could go to solitary confinement, so I didn't have to deal with anybody. I enjoyed solitary confinement. Can you believe it? I loved it. So I think this is part of why we're messed up mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, because we don't get that alone time. And there's a big difference between lonely and alone. So anyway, yeah, this is another reason for I suppose this coming up in relation to the gift. Like isn't it weird for somebody like me to say that? Yeah, that was a gift for me to go to prison, regardless to what I think of it, like philosophically or in my little kind of think tank. So because yeah, when I was in that unit, I won 10 grand, and it was like, wow, it was like something was looking out for me. It was like a turning point, and like this, the end of something and the beginning of something. Now I still had to break the habit of being in crime, and that took time. And actually, it took a gun at my head. Yeah, I've done an armed robbery. I've done two actually. And I pointed a gun at someone's head, and I had a gun pointed at my head directly after, not long after, and another tip on the head, that nail in it was just like in order for me to completely understand, as we sow, so shall we reap. What goes around comes around. I truly believe that. No, I know it. I don't believe it actually, because it's what's happened to me, and if that's how the conscious mind works in how we judge ourselves or how we project with what I don't know how it really works. Whether it's something to do with the balance or the scales, that are in us all, or whether it's something totally in the mind, or but ideally, now that I live a completely different life, and as I sow shall I reap, I do beautiful things, and beautiful things happen for me. Amazing things happen for me, and while I was on the other side of the fence, it was the same but the opposite. I did bad things, and bad things happened to me. I've been knocked out, I've been stabbed. I've nearly lost my life in situations. And it's like all experience. But that was a turning point, and I think there's a force. That I don't know how to say it in relation to the way this debate is between people. In relation to atheism and religious or creationism or whatever. It's like, I think there's something in everything, and there's the best. Let's take the best out of everything, and not be extremist in everything. There is magic out there. There's no doubt about it. And why not? There's something in using our imagination. A lot of things come from imagination. And but there's a difference, sometimes between that and absolute fantasy. And so everything's a fine line, in a sense, and it's interesting. But and I had to work really hard through my own karma, and so when it comes to food, it's like it's a real battle, for a while, and because we're habitual, and it's learning how to break that habit, and it takes time, and whether you see it as karma or not, whatever the case may be, or just pure. This is what you got to do. Is repetition changes everything, So it's replacing these habits. Blessed be, time's up once again.